Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. In each of these 7 videos, I'm going to share with you a main point, a question to ponder, and a baby step that you can take, all designed to help you to live a more generous life, or as Paul says, to excel in this grace of giving. Well, throughout Scripture, one thing that you see very clearly is that God owns everything. That's our main point today. God owns everything. You see it right from Genesis, where God created and gave it to Adam and Eve to manage. You see it in the Exodus as they're wandering through the wilderness, and God provides manna from heaven and water from a rock, and even quail when they're tired of eating bread and drinking water. But I want to share with you a story. You can read it in 2 Kings chapter 6 and 7. I'm just going to share with you a brief part of that story. But King Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, had besieged the city in Samaria. And so things were desperate inside the city. There's no more food getting in, and people are dying. And so in their desperation, there is a group of people living outside the city walls. These are the lepers. And these lepers aren't able to get into the city, and they're also starving to death because nobody's being generous to them, throwing food over the wall for them to eat. And so they devise the plan where they're going to go into the camp of the Armenians and just surrender because they're starving to death. And here's just a part of their story, chapter 7, verse 5. At dusk, they got up and went to the camp of the Armenians. When they reached the edge of the camp, no one was there. For the Lord had caused the Armenians to hear the sound of the chariots and the horses and a great army, so that they said to one another, "Look, the king of Israel has hired the Hittite and Egyptian kings to attack us." So they got up and fled at dusk and abandoned their tents and their horses and their donkeys. They left the camp as it was and ran for their lives. The men who had leprosy reached the edge of the camp, and they entered one of the tents, and they ate and they drank. And then they took the silver, the gold, the clothes, and they went off and hid them. They returned and entered another tent and took some things from it and hid them also. Then they said to one another, "What we're doing is not right. This is a day of good news, and we're keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let us go at once and report this to the royal palace." These lepers came to realize something that we all need to realize, that God owns everything. And if God owns everything, we shouldn't keep it to ourselves. We're meant and designed to be generous. So here's our question for today. If God owns everything and we shouldn't keep it all for ourselves, how do I show that God owns everything? Well, here's a simple baby step that you can take. Choose a percentage to live on. And you already do. Most Americans choose to live on about 105% of what they make. But choose a percentage in which you're going to live on, choose a percentage in which you're going to save, and then choose a percentage on which you're going to give. Now, some Christians choose to tithe, take 10% of their income and do that. That might be way too much of a lead. Don't feel like you got to jump right into that. But choose a percentage. Maybe it's 1% of what you make. And I'm going to give that to God, showing him that I believe that God owns everything. Or maybe it's a 0.5%. Just choose whatever it is and dedicate that as your way of saying to God, "God, I believe that you own everything, and everything I have is a gift from you." And try that and see if that doesn't change the way you view gifts that God has given to you, and see if that doesn't just stir up in you this great generosity. So thanks for joining us today. I look forward to sharing with you another video next week.